I'll be back in an hour to pick you up. Choose a good story.
Hello? The bird and the tree, an ancient relationship. Somewhere high above Yellowstone,
a scientist surveys the forest below.
So we're in the northwest corner of the park. Yeah, all the trees on the top of these mountains here are all whitebark pine. Yeah, the birds will tuck the seeds in all sorts of little crevices. This is Dunraven, I think, right here.
Hey, Bear. Hey, Bear. Always good to let them know you're coming. There's a nutcracker right there. Top of a spruce. Probably has young. You're in the midst of a whitebark pine forest here. When it's a good whitebark pine crop, this is a wildlife hub. I hear a nutcracker right over here. This is an interesting site because there's a mix of really healthy trees and then skeletons of dead ones. There's a lot of people studying the tree, but we want to get data on the bird. There it goes, going right across. Yep. The two kind of depend on each other, and the bird might be the savior.
In the rugged mountains of the West is an ecosystem that stands high above the others, the whitebark pine forest. Whitebark pine forests are an iconic feature of these landscapes. And the whitebark pine, for which they're named, are as tough and rugged as the places they're found.
Right at that line between where trees can grow and can't grow are the whitebark. They're that top layer to the forest in the mountains.
These are some of the steepest, harshest environments in North America, places where most trees can't grow. Yet here they are, thriving.
I mean, some of these whitebarks get to be hundreds of years old. It almost looks like Lord of the Rings kind of ancient forests.
How these trees have come to define an entire mountain ecosystem is the result of a long-standing partnership with a remarkable bird, the Clark's nutcracker.
Oh wow, the relationship between whitebark and nutcrackers is ancient. These high elevation ecosystems came about because of the coevolution between the bird and the tree, without a doubt.
It's believed that whitebark pine trees have been on the North American continent for at least 30,000 years. Despite that promising history, whitebark pines are at a unique disadvantage when it comes to seed dispersal. Their cones never open, and their seeds, unlike those of many other species, are wingless and can't be carried on the wind. If left on its own, a single whitebark pine tree would never disperse more than a few feet from where it stands. This is where the Clark's nutcracker comes in. The seeds may not have wings, but the birds do, and they'll often fly them miles from the parent tree, where they're buried in the ground to be stored and eaten later, or left to grow into trees that eventually grow into forests. The bird and the tree are an ideal match for each other. It's a relationship that's lasted over eons. But it's only beginning to be understood.
I count a lot of things in Yellowstone. Birds are the hardest, because if you don't get them, doesn't mean they're not there. They could have just flown away. So we really need to have that ability to track them.
We have 6 satellite transmitters. Our goal is to get a better understanding of what habitats are important to the Clark's nutcrackers during different times of the year. What do they do when the whitebark pines don't have a lot of seeds?
The plan is to put out bait stations to bring nutcrackers in. Okay, Walter, good to go.
Okay, good.
The best time to do that is when there's snow on the ground and other food is scarce. But this is an adventure because no one has done this in Yellowstone National Park. And I think we're all excited about the prospect.
Food may be scarce in late winter, but in late summer, food in the mountains above Yellowstone is plentiful. This is when whitebark pine cones are at full ripeness. Fist-sized, sappy purple cones litter the treetops. Inside them is the food that fuels this ecosystem, and it's ready to be harvested. Each whitebark cone can hold up to 75 seeds. And the nutcrackers, with their long, sharp bills, are supremely adapted for harvesting them. Opening these tough cones is a feat unmatched by any other bird in its range. But just as impressive as the nutcracker's ability to access the seeds is how they're able to hold them all. Clark's nutcrackers are one of the only birds in North America with a hole under their tongue. The seeds are passed through the hole into a specialized flexible pouch in their neck that can expand to store more than 100 seeds at a time. As they work over the cones, they may eat a seed or two and discard a few that don't seem right. But the rest get stored in their unique throat pouch that swells under the weight of so many seeds. It's not long before all of the activity in the treetops catches the attention of an animal on the forest floor that shares the nutcracker's fondness for whitebark pine seeds: the red squirrel. A squirrel's life in the whitebark forest revolves around their midden, the heart of their territory, where they bury or hide their food. These warm fall days won't last forever. They'll need to gather as many cones and seeds as possible before the weather shifts and winter sets in. It's a competition for cones in the whitebark forest at this time of year. The nutcrackers may have a head start, but the squirrels aren't far behind. cones and seeds are stored everywhere throughout the midden. It's precious food for the squirrels. Their survival will depend on it. So it's important that everything is well hidden. After so much work, it's time for a nap. Unfortunately for the squirrel, whitebark pine seeds are an incredibly important food for much larger animals too, particularly bears. Black bears have found the middens first, and while they're known to be good climbers, it requires far less of their energy to take advantage of the squirrel's hard work. Now that black bears have found these squirrel middens, it won't be long before even bigger trouble shows up. Grizzly bears.
Because the cones are large with a big nut, a lot of animals rely on them. And whitebark pine nuts are a key grizzly bear food.
In the fall, a grizzly bear's diet can be made up almost entirely of whitebark pine seeds. Pound for pound, the seeds are more calorie-rich than chocolate, and the bears need to put on enough fat before hibernation. In fact, whitebark pine seeds are so important for grizzly bears that more cubs are born and survive in years with a good cone crop. Up in the trees, the nutcrackers carry on undeterred. They're not too concerned about bears stealing their seeds because nutcrackers employ a very different strategy for hiding them. Nutcrackers distribute seeds far and wide across the mountain landscape. A single bird may hide up to 98,000 seeds a year. It's a food strategy called caching, and it's only possible because nutcrackers have remarkable spatial memories. For a nutcracker, the landscape is a mosaic of identifiable features. A boulder, a downed tree, an old stump. All can be used as visual cues to help them remember where they put their seeds.
They stash these seeds, sometimes up to tens of thousands of caches, and no one can believe that they can recover these things. But they do. They don't get them all, though. And so some of those caches grow into whitebark pine.
While superior memories have allowed nutcrackers to perfect this seed caching strategy, it's the seeds they forget that grow into the forests of the future. Today, the future of whitebark pine is in doubt. Over the last several decades, massive declines have occurred throughout North America, with some areas experiencing losses as high as 95%.
We're seeing, entire mountainsides of red needles where the whitebark's dying.
Once healthy stands have been reduced to ghost forests. Entire hillsides wiped out by mountain pine beetle infestations. And even more whitebark pine have been killed off by an invasive fungus known as blister rust.
I think if you look back on some of the history of diseases like this that have gone through North America. The classic case is chestnut blight, which came into the eastern U.S. in the late 1800s, and 40 years later, there were no American chestnut left in the forest.
Back in Yellowstone, nutcrackers have found the bait stations.
Trapping a Clark's nutcracker is tough because they're smart. Outwitting, outsmarting a Clark's nutcracker is hard to do.
Okay, you see how I've got it in here?
Yep. We're using two types of traps.
A little feeding trough there. Got it.
One, we're using a walk-in trap, just a wire box. They go in, and we have set the door so it closes when they go inside, and they trap themselves. The second method is a bow net. Flip a trigger, and the net closes right over the bird and traps it.
With the trap set, the team moves off to a quiet location to watch and wait. It's not long before a nutcracker gets curious and enters the walk-in trap.
Okay, got it.
Over at the bow net, it looks like they're close to capturing another.
Nutcracker coming in. Got it.
Got it.
With birds safely in hand, the team can finally get down to collecting data.
It looks like it's 192.
That's what I was going to say.
Nutcrackers are really very important. And there's a question about whether this iconic relationship is fragile.
Call it 175.
If we lose whitebark, will we lose nutcracker populations? And what are the implications?
It's going on the right leg.
It's going in the right leg. Yeah, that's correct. It's a species that's fascinating. It's one of the few birds in North America that holds the survival of a tree species in its life history. It feels decent there.
With all of the measurements recorded, it's time for the crucial last step. A satellite transmitter is carefully fitted to the bird, like a tiny backpack.
How does that look?
If we lose the nutcracker, we're going to lose the tree.
It feels okay.
And we're going to lose all the ecosystem attributes that occur high in the mountains of the Rockies, the Sierras, the Cascades.
There.
Nutcrackers keep all that going.
I think we're good.
Perfect.
Despite facing serious challenges, hope isn't lost for the bird in the tree. Work is underway in mountainous regions across North America to help restore the ecosystem. Conservationists are climbing into the forest canopy to collect cones from healthy trees and using seed from those cones to grow hundreds of thousands of disease-resistant seedlings that can be planted back on the landscape. Treatments are being applied to protect trees from mountain pine beetle attacks. And researchers across the range are studying nutcracker populations to help guide management decisions for the future of whitebark forests. With every cone collected and seedling planted, people are helping ensure that the bird and the tree maintain their ancient relationship. Because it's the nutcracker that will ultimately need to carry the whitebark forest into the future. It's the nutcracker that's likely to be the savior.
You see a nutcracker, you know there's a particular species of pine behind them, and forests of them, and high elevation ecosystems. That's what that little bird represents. You know all that richness lives in it. And that is a critical, unforgettable part of Yellowstone National Park.